Greetings and welcome to White Sands National Monument. During this podcast, we will look at the Visitor Center and other Adobe buildings included in the historical district of the White Sands National Monument. These buildings were officially recognized and placed on the National Historic Register in March 1988. The buildings in the historic area were constructed during the Great Depression by various government agencies, including the Works Progress Administration, renamed during 1939 to Work Projects Administration. The WPA provided jobs for unskilled workers. Many of these jobs were in national and state parks. When White Sands National Monument was created in 1933 by President Hoover, there were no facilities, just the beautiful white gypsum sand dunes. The WPA created a way to provide jobs for the local unemployed and provide needed facilities for the monument. Each of the White Sands buildings reflect the Spanish Pueblo Adobe style, also known as Pueblo Revival architecture. Architect Lyle Bennett, who was considered the master of the Pueblo Revival style, designed and worked the original buildings at White Sands National Monument. Wall construction of these buildings is of adobe bricks and stucco finish on the outside walls and plaster finish on the inside walls. Resting on the adobe walls are the beams that support the roof. These beams are called vigas and rest on corbels, which serve two purposes. One is decorative, and the other is to distribute the weights of the vigas and roof. Often the vigas extend to the outside of the wall and are visible from the outside of the building. Also visible on the outside wall are canales, which are designed to drain water from the roof. Running at right angles on top of the vigas are groups of 3 aspen poles called savinas. On top of the savinas is a split wood covering called latias. To be completely authentic, the roof would be covered with brush and several feet of compact dirt. In the case of the buildings at White Sands, the initial roof covering was tar paper and asphalt, and is now insulation and rubber membrane. Tin was the poor man's substitute for silver on the Spanish-Mexican frontier. Each village had at least one tinsmith, and often individuals crafted their own tinware, since all that was needed was a nail to punch dents into a design drawn on the tin, and something to cut the sheet of tin. Many of the designs in tinware show a strong New England influence. Now let's take a look at a wall lighting fixture. Glass was one of the most prized articles of trade to reach the frontier of New Mexico. The lights shown here are combed glass and decorated tin. Let's take a look at how the glass was decorated. After the glass was cut to the required size, it was painted and allowed to dry for a few minutes. Then a common hair comb was dragged across the painted surface to make the design. Once the paint was completely dry, the glass was mounted in the decorated tin lamp fixture. Adobe is simply a mixture of clay, silt dirt, sand, and straw or animal manure. The proportions of the mixture are not exact, but are roughly 3 parts clay, 7 parts sand, and 1 part straw. This mixture seems to produce the best bricks. When mixing adobe, the amount of water needed varies, but the mixture should have the consistency of bread dough. Brick size depends upon the form used, but a common size might be 4 inches by 10 inches by 14 inches. Adobe buildings are used in areas where annual rainfall is less than 20 inches per year. Stucco covering on the outside of the wall is necessary to prevent the erosive forces of rain and wind. The mortar that holds the bricks together is simply adobe. Let's mold an adobe brick by placing the wet adobe into a form. The form is removed as soon as the block will retain its shape, and the brick is turned on edge and left to dry in the sun. The brick will reach full strength after approximately 30 days. Just imagine making 100 bricks a day by hand until buildings like the ones here at White Sands were complete. Materials may be inexpensive, but adobe buildings are indeed labor-intensive to construct. Today, White Sands National Monument continues to provide a place of hope, community, and wildness for the nearly 500,000 visitors who visit every year. These buildings stand as sentinels to our past and beacons of hope for future generations of visitors looking for solace in chaotic times.